In a world shattered by chaos and lurking monsters, a small band of survivors fights to stay alive against impossible odds. But as they stumble into secrets buried deep within the ruined landscape, they realize that the real danger isn't just outside. They might be fighting something far darker from within. With trust shattered and hope hanging by a thread, will they uncover the truth before it's too late? The battle for survival has only just begun. Dare to step into the darkness and discover what lies beyond the ruins. Please wait. Before we start, tap that iCard button in the top right corner and smash that subscribe button. Right now, hit the notification bell so you're first in line when new stories land. Alright, let's dive into the story. The sky above Xiron was burning again. Literally, as if hell itself had decided to take up permanent residence. Plasma storms rolled lazily across the ash-gray heavens, streaks of jagged light carving lazy spirals through the thick, toxic air. Explosions echoed in the distance. Probably a tank misfiring or maybe a very unlucky goat wandering too close to the battlefield. D&E Carson mused bitterly. Either way, he didn't have time to care. The ground beneath his boots trembled with the force of something enormous erupting far off in ruins. But he was elbow-deep in the wreckage, focused on the battered mess before him. His HUD flickered, blinking warnings in a maddening pattern. Dangerously low oxygen, ammo reserves at a tragically comedic level, and a morale indicator hovering somewhere between May and panic. He gritted his teeth and ignored it all, focusing instead on prying open the twisted, mangled hatch of what had once been a Vraxian personnel carrier. Now it looked like a cosmic toddler had stepped on it. Crushed and flattened, metal warped into a tin can. Sparks sparked from the broken wiring as he wrestled with the last stubborn bolt, trying to get inside. That was when something inside the wreckage hissed at him. An angry, furious hiss that didn't sound mechanical, hydraulic, or overheated coolant. No, this hiss was alive and it was pissed. D&E froze, eyes narrowing. Inside the wreckage, behind a fractured stasis pod, he saw her. A tiny figure crouched, clutching a fuzzy creature with a single glowing eye and an uncomfortably cheerful stitched grin across its mouth. Her bruised mauve skin was smeared with soot and cuts, and her long, pointed ears twitched nervously as she stared at him. She looked like she was about 8 or 9, but her luminous eyes, big, shiny, and suspicious, told him she was definitely not from Earth. She snarled, tiny teeth bared, and with surprising strength, hurled a jagged piece of twisted metal at his helmet. It bounced harmlessly off the protective visor, and D&E took a step back, raising his hands in a non-threatening gesture. "Back!" she screeched, voice high and furious. "Meet Snout, Earth Creeper." She spat out the words in P-perfect Galactic Basic, accent thick but unmistakable. "I am Princess Lyra of the Vraxian Ascendancy. Touch me, and suffer 1,000 years of imperial retribution." Her tiny fists clenched as she glared at him like a tiny warrior ready to fight to the death.
Dne blinket, momentarily stunned.
Well, he muttered inwardly, "You're definitely not from the mailroom." Just as he was about to speak, another explosion shook the ruins, sending debris raining down like cosmic confetti. He barely registered the distant crackle of a voice on his comm. Urgent, sharp. D&E, evac incoming in 6 minutes. Find anything. He ducked instinctively as Lyra, evidently not fond of being rescued, swung a broken hollow player at him with all her might, aiming for his helmet. It bounced off harmlessly, but her glare was deadly enough to make him pause. "Yeah," he said, voice muffled by his helmet. "Found a princess. Very stabby. 10 out of 10 attitudes. Highly recommended for chaos." Silence. Then, a dry, sarcastic voice crackled over the channel. "Please tell me that's code for a broken data core." D&E rolled his eyes behind his visor. "Negative. Small, sentient, threat level, emotionally volatile," he added, just in case. Another explosion rumbled nearby, closer this time. His sensors flickered, and he saw Lyra growling and trying to operate a plasma cutter upside down. her injured frame trembling as she fiddled with the controls. Her tiny hands, bruised and trembling, clumsily gripped the tools, and her eyes flashed with defiance and fear. He sighed heavily, knowing he was the only thing standing between her and the approaching Vraxian kill drones. Lightning fast, relentless, and eager to wipe out everything in sight. Gritting his teeth, he slowly lowered his rifle, peeling off his helmet so his face was exposed. His expression was tired, worn out, and just a shade from exhaustion. "Your Highness," he said, voice steady but weary. "Rule number 1 of surviving Xeon, don't get killed." Lyra snorted, tiny and defiant. "Rule number 2, she said, narrowing her luminous eyes. "Trust me to get you off this rock, and I'll throw in a chocolate ration." D&E blinked in surprise, then managed a small smile. "That's the spirit," he said, voice trying to sound reassuring. "And if you betray me, I'll have your spleen turned into a diplomatic appetizer." She immediately tried to bite his hand. D&E, already halfway to the evac point, dodged the attack and carried her over the rubble, her little form hanging onto his vest like a sarcastic, tiny backpack. The distant explosions kept shaking the ground beneath them, but he kept moving, navigating through craters and debris as fast as he could. Just as he was about to reach the last stretch, Lyra leaned in close, her voice dropping to a whisper that was both threatening and oddly amused. "My mother's going to vaporize you." He blinked, startled. "Oh, she doesn't like humans," Lyra added helpfully, ears twitching. "She says you smell like old soap and rebellion." D&E chuckled despite himself. "Can't argue with that." A moment later, the drop ship's engines howled as it swooped in, its thrusters tearing through the smoke-filled sky. Wind buffeted him as he sprinted the final 50 meters, Lyra clutching his vest like a sarcastic, tiny backpack. His squad stared at him from the hatch, eyes wide with disbelief and curiosity. "What the hell is that?" Corporal Juarez demanded as they clambered aboard, eyes fixed on her. "Royal baggage," D&E wheezed, collapsing into a jump seat. "And whatever you do not poke her." Lyra held up her plush companion, its glowing eye flickering ominously as the hatch sealed behind them. The ship roared upward, breaking the atmosphere with a trail of scorched air and a chorus of confused curses. Then he finally allowed himself a long, shaky exhale, rubbing at a bite mark on his shoulder. Lyra settled beside him, her eyes fixed on the stars emerging through the viewport. "You're not entirely useless," she said, voice grudging but genuine. "Thanks," Denny muttered, trying to ignore the throbbing pain in his shoulder. "That means a lot coming from someone who just tried to sell my spleen." She smiled, a sharp, mischievous grin that made him wonder what kind of chaos was truly brewing. As the moon of Xiron burned faintly behind them, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just taken a turn into the absurd, and he wasn't sure he was ready for what came next. The dropship lurched violently as it pierced the upper atmosphere of Xiron, streaks of fiery plasma lighting up the void outside the viewport. Inside, D&E Carson was trying to regain some semblance of composure after the chaos he'd just survived. His squad was gathered around, some looking more stunned than others, eyes flitting nervously toward the hatch. And, exhausted and grimy, leaned back against the bulkhead and muttered, "Well, that was a hell of a welcome party." His voice was dry, but the faint trace of a grin tugged at the corner of his mouth. The squad's medic, a tall, stoic alien with shimmering scales that rippled like a soap bubble, shot him a sideways glance. "You're lucky the ship didn't blow apart. That was a close call, Sergeant. You're either brave or just plain reckless." D&E chuckled softly. "Probably both. Either way, I'd say we're officially in the what the hell just happened club." He looked over at the others, eyes lingering on Lyra, who was clutching her fuzzy creature with a look of smug satisfaction. "And I see our little princess is still in one piece. Though I'd wager, he's got a few choice words for me once she's had her coffee." Lyra, sitting cross-legged on a nearby seat, huffed and crossed her arms. "I don't drink coffee," she declared, voice dripping with disdain. "But I do have a few choice words about your knight in shining armor routine, human." She shot him a pointed look, her luminous eyes narrowing in mock annoyance. "You think you're so clever, don't you?" Diane raised an eyebrow. "Oh, I think I've earned the title. Saving a princess, surviving a drone ambush, and giving up my last chocolate bar. Pretty impressive resume, if I do say so myself." He gestured at her with a grin. "Plus, I've got the scars to prove it." Lyra snorted, unimpressed. "Your scars look like a toddler's doodle." She pointed at a jagged line on his arm. "And your resume needs a lot of work. You're lucky I'm feeling merciful today. Otherwise, I'd have you thrown into the brig for kidnapping." Diane shrugged, leaning back. "Kidnapping? No. Just a friendly kidnapping. Besides, Your Royal Highness, I don't think the Vraxian justice system is prepared for a human sense of humor. Trust me, you don't want to see the paperwork." The squad's intel officer, a wiry being with antennae that twitched every time a new explosion shook the ship, leaned forward. "Sir, the situation outside is escalating. The rebels are swarming the perimeter. We're not out of the woods yet. The captain's orders are clear. Evac in 6 minutes. We need to move fast." Denny straightened, his face setting into a determined expression. 6 minutes? That's barely enough time to find my shoes, let alone figure out how to fly this thing. He looked at Lyra. "And you, princess, I hope you're ready for a quick exit." Lyra smirked and tapped her fuzzy creature's head. "Don't worry about me. I've survived worse, like being stuck in a closet with my mother's fashion choices." She paused, her eyes narrowing. "But you, human, I hope you know what you're doing. Because if you mess this up, I'll personally make sure your spleen becomes a diplomatic gift." Diane rolled his eyes. "Great. Just what I needed, an alien threat with a flair for the dramatic. But don't worry, Your Highness. I've been through worse than a few angry rebels. Besides, I've got a plan. Well, sort of." He leaned in conspiratorially. "It involves a lot of luck, a little bit of chaos, and maybe a miracle or two." The ship lurched again, and alarms blared throughout the cabin, their shrill voices echoing off the metal walls. Outside, the chaos of Xiron's surface was reflected in the swirling firestorm of plasma and debris, the distant thunder of explosions like a relentless drumbeat. The squad prepared to disembark, weapons at the ready, faces set with determination. Diane looked around at the ragtag group, knowing full well that they were stepping into a storm far bigger than any of them could control. But he also knew one thing. They had no choice but to face it, and somehow they would. With a final glance at Lyra, who was already fiddling with her alien weapon, Denny muttered under his breath, "All right, then, time to make this chaos count." And with that, the hatch hissed open, revealing the burning surface of Xiron waiting for them below. The descent onto Xiron's scarred surface was nothing short of chaos incarnate. The drop ship shuddered violently as its thrusters fought against the turbulent atmosphere, streaks of plasma lighting up the sky in violent reds and oranges. Inside, D&E Carson gripped his seat tightly, his knuckles white, as alarms blared and warning lights flashed in a frantic chorus. Lyra sat cross-legged beside him, her tiny fists clenched, eyes wide but defiant, clutching her fuzzy creature like a shield against the madness outside. The squad scrambled to prepare their gear, weapons loading, comms crackling with frantic commands and frantic curses. "Brace for impact!" The pilot shouted over the chaos, voice strained but steady. The ship lurched hard, metal screeching as it finally skidded onto the uneven, cratered terrain of Xiron. The hatch hissed open with a deafening rush of air and smoke, revealing a landscape ripped apart by war. Craters filled with molten slag, twisted metal, and burning wreckage scattered like the remains of a forgotten apocalypse. D&E was the first to leap out, weapon at the ready, eyes scanning their surroundings. "Clear the immediate zone." he barked, voice firm despite the pounding in his chest. Keep your eyes peeled. This place looks like the devil's playground. His squad responded instantly, fanning out cautiously, weapons raised, and senses alert. Lyra slipped out behind him, her eyes darting from one shadow to another, the fuzzy creature still clutched tightly in her arms. Suddenly, a distant explosion rocked the ground beneath them, sending up a shockwave that made everyone stumble. The air filled with the scent of charred flesh and burnt machinery. Rebels or something worse? Someone whispered, voice trembling. Denny shot a glance at Lyra, who was trembling slightly but refused to show weakness. Whatever it is, Denny said grimly, we're about to find out. He motioned for his squad to follow, leading them toward a partially collapsed building that looked like the remnants of an ancient factory. Rubble and debris piled high, blocking most of the sunlight. As they moved, Lyra kept a wary eye on him, her voice sharp. You humans really like to jump into the fire, she muttered, nostrils flaring. Do you even know what's waiting for us? Diane shot her a grin. Honestly, not a clue. But I've learned one thing, if you wait for perfect conditions, you'll be waiting forever. Besides, I've got a feeling that whatever's out here, it's too busy tearing itself apart to worry about us. Behind them, the squad's sharpshooter, a wiry alien with laser eyes, whispered, Sir, I'm picking up movement. Lots of it. Hostile, definitely. Looks like we've got company. Fast moving, too. Great, Denny muttered, eyes narrowing. Well, let's give them a warm welcome, preferably without getting blown up first. He gestured for Lyra to stay close, even as she eyed him suspiciously. Suddenly, from the shadows emerged a hulking figure, massive, covered in scars, its eyes glowing like molten lava. It roared, a deafening sound that shook the ground and made the very air vibrate. Either we're about to get eaten, Lyra whispered, voice trembling with a mixture of fear and thrill, or this is a new kind of welcome party. D&E raised his weapon, aiming carefully. Either way, I'd prefer it if we didn't become its appetizer, he said through clenched teeth. Fire! The squad responded instantly, their weapons blazing in a barrage of laser fire and plasma bursts. The beast howled, staggering but not falling. It was clear this was only the beginning of a nightmare that had no intention of ending quietly. As chaos erupted around them, Lyra's sharp voice cut through, daring, fierce. You humans are so loud. I thought you said this was supposed to be a quick mission. She shot D&E a wicked grin. Well, I hope you're good at improvising. D&E, already ducking behind a piece of wreckage, shot back. And I thought I was the one with the attitude. Stick with me, princess. We're about to find out if luck still counts in this hellhole. The fight raged on, the landscape echoing with the deafening clash of metal, fire, and desperate survival. For all the chaos, D&E knew one thing. This was just the start. And somehow they'd have to make it through alive. The battle raged fiercely amid the ruins of Xiron's battered landscape. Plasma weapons sizzled through the smoky air, explosions lighting up the darkened skies with bursts of blinding light. D&E crouched behind a fallen piece of debris and cursed under his breath as he dodged a particularly close shot. Come on, D&E, he muttered, voice tense. You've faced worse than this, just focus. His squad was scattered, each fighting their fight against the relentless tide of enemies, some alien, some mechanical, all hell-bent on wiping them out. Lyra darted through the chaos, her fuzzy creature tucked safely in her arms, her eyes darting from danger to danger, her sharp mind trying to piece together their next move. Lyra, stay close, D&E called out, firing a burst that took down a drone zipping toward them. She glanced back, eyes flashing with determination. I'm not about to lose the only decent thing I've got left on this godforsaken planet. She shot him a quick, defiant smile. You humans really do like to throw yourselves into the fire, huh?
Dne grinned grimly.
If I didn't, I'd be dead already. Besides, I get the feeling this isn't over yet. Not by a long shot. His voice was steady, but his eyes flicked anxiously toward the looming figure of the beast that had initially roared at them. Massive, scarred, and still very much alive. The creature's molten eyes flickered like burning coals, and it roared again, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Suddenly, a voice crackled over the comms, frantic and urgent. "Sir, I've got movement, multiple targets closing in fast. Looks like reinforcements. Hostiles, definitely. Great," Denny muttered, grimacing. "Just what we needed. Everyone, fall back to the main structure. Double time." His squad responded instantly, sprinting through the rubble, dodging falling debris and incoming fire. Lyra, quick on her feet, kept pace with surprising agility, clutching her fuzzy creature with a fierce grip. The beast was gaining ground, its roar echoing across the battlefield as it charged toward them. DNE fired another shot, hitting it in the shoulder, but it barely flinched. Instead, it roared again and swung a massive claw that barely missed Lyra's head. "This thing's relentless," she shouted, eyes wide with adrenaline. "Yeah, no kidding," DNE shot back, ducking behind a pillar just as a plasma blast exploded nearby. "If we're lucky, it's just stupid enough to get itself killed, though I wouldn't hold my breath." His voice was edged with tension, but he kept his humor sharp, trying to mask the growing dread inside him. Behind them, the squad sniper, a sharp-eyed alien with a mischievous grin even in the heat of battle, called out, "Sir, I've got a clear shot," aiming for the head. "Should I take it?" "Do it."
Dnes nept.
"But be quick. This thing's tougher than it looks." The sniper's shot rang out, a piercing laser that struck true, causing the beast to stagger momentarily. It roared in pain and fury, swinging wildly, destabilized but still dangerous. Lyra, watching the chaos unfold, muttered, "Humans really do like to dance on the edge of disaster, don't you?" She shook her head, then grinned fiercely. "Well, I hope you're good at improvising because this looks like a long night." Denis pressed his back against the debris, catching his breath for a moment. "Long night? Hell, Lyra, I was thinking it's more like a long eternity. But we're not done yet. Not by a long shot." He looked around at his squad, determined, battered, but unbowed. "We fight, we survive, and we make damn sure this hellhole doesn't claim us." The beast roared again, enraged and unyielding, as the firefight continued to swirl around them. At that moment, amidst the smoke and chaos, Danny knew this was only the beginning. Whatever else was coming, they had to stay sharp, because on Xiron, survival was a game of inches, and they had no choice but to fight for every one of them. The chaos on Xiron's surface was beginning to settle into a tense, uneasy standoff. The beast, battered and bleeding from the sniper's precise shot, roared in frustration, swinging wildly with its massive claws. The squad regrouped behind a battered wall, catching their breath amid the dying echoes of gunfire. Danny's chest heaved as he looked around, assessing their battered situation. His eyes flicked to Lyra, who was trembling but holding her ground, clutching her fuzzy creature with a fierce grip. "Is everyone still breathing?" Dan asked, voice rough but steady. The squad responded with nods, their faces grim but determined. The alien sharpshooter cracked a grin, wiping sweat from his brow. "Well, if we're done playing tag with a monster, maybe we should figure out what's next. Because honestly, I've had enough of this planet's hospitality." Lyra's sharp eyes flicked toward the crater where the beast had been slowed but not defeated. "You humans and your stubbornness," she muttered, voice tinged with a mix of annoyance and admiration. "You think a little fire and a lot of noise will fix everything?"
Dne chuckled humorlessly.
"No, Lyra. But it beats sitting here waiting for it to come back alive and hungry. We've got to push forward, find that rebel command, or whatever's left of it, before they decide to send something even uglier." His tone was firm, laced with the grit of someone who had seen too many missions go sideways. Suddenly, a faint hum vibrated through the air. It was distant but unmistakable. An approaching vehicle, fast and heavy. The squad tensed, weapons ready, eyes narrowing in suspicion. "What now?" Lyra asked, voice sharp with suspicion. "More friends of yours, or more enemies?" Danny's eyes narrowed as he peered into the gloom. "Either way, they're not here to sing Kumbaya," he muttered. "Get ready. Sounds like reinforcements are about to arrive. We need to decide quickly. Stay sharp, everyone." His voice carried authority, but beneath it, a flicker of concern. The ground trembled again as the approaching vehicle broke through the debris, kicking up clouds of dust and ash. As the vehicle screeched to a halt nearby, the squad instinctively spread out, weapons aimed. The hatch hissed open, revealing a group of figures clad in battered armor, their faces grim but determined. D&E stepped forward, raising his hand in a cautious gesture. "You here to help, or just another bunch of troublemakers?" One of the newcomers, a grizzled veteran with a scar running down his cheek, nodded grimly. "We're here to finish what we started. Rebel command's been pushed back, but we've got intel. There's a hidden cache of supplies and weaponry not far from here. If we can get to it, we might just turn the tide." Lyra looked skeptical. "And you expect us to believe that after all the chaos?" The veteran's eyes flashed. "Believe what you want, but we don't have time for games. The longer we stay here, the more Zyron's monsters will come back, and they won't be as friendly as us." D&E gritted his teeth, weighing the options. "Fine, we push forward then. But if anyone tries to double-cross us, I swear I'll make them regret it." His squad nodded in unison. "Let's move fast and quiet. We can't afford any more surprises." Lyra hesitated for a moment, then gave a sharp nod.
Alright, humans.
"Let's see if your luck holds out a little longer. Because I've got a feeling that whatever's waiting for us next, it's not going to be gentle." As they prepared to advance through the treacherous landscape, the squad knew this was only the beginning. The battle for survival on Zyron was far from over, and every step forward was a gamble. A dangerous dance on the edge of annihilation. But they had no choice but to press on, driven by the hope that somewhere, somehow, they could turn the tide in this nightmare. The group moved swiftly through the jagged, scorched landscape, each step echoing the urgency pounding in their chests. The distant hum of the approaching vehicle still buzzed in the air, but now they pressed on, knowing time was slipping away like sand through their fingers. Lyra kept pace, her fuzzy creature tucked tightly in her arms, eyes darting around nervously. D&E led the way, weapon at the ready, every muscle taut with alertness. The battered squad was battered but unbowed, their determination burning brighter than the scars on their armor. "Keep your eyes peeled," Denny muttered, voice low but commanding. "Whatever's waiting for us, it's not going to be friendly." His gaze flicked toward Lyra. "And Lyra, stay close. We don't want you wandering off into the dark. Trust me, that's when the monsters get you." Lyra shot him a quick, defiant look. "I can handle myself. Besides, I've seen worse in my world, remember that, D&E. You humans think you're the only ones good at surviving." Her voice was sharp, with a mix of sarcasm and resolve. "Fair point," D&E admitted, a smirk tugging at his lips. "But I'd rather have you with us than try to fend off some beast solo." Their banter was cut short as a distant rumble grew louder, vibrating through the ground beneath their feet. The squad instinctively slowed, weapons raised, scanning the horizon. The vehicle appeared again, a hulking metallic beast barreling toward them, its engines roaring like a beast itself. A tense silence fell over the squad as the vehicle skidded to a halt nearby, kicking up a cloud of dust and ash. The hatch hissed open, revealing figures clad in battered armor, faces grim and eyes sharp. Denis stepped forward cautiously, raising his hand in a gesture of peace. "Who are you? What do you want?" The leader of the newcomers, a broad-shouldered man with a scar across his cheek, met Danny's gaze steadily. "We're survivors, like you. We've got intel. There's a cache of supplies and weapons hidden not far from here. If we move together, we might stand a chance against whatever else is lurking in this hellscape." Lyra's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "And why should we trust you? You could be just another bunch of troublemakers trying to steal our chances." The scarred man's voice was firm but measured. "Because the alternative is dying here alone. We've seen what's out there. Those monsters are relentless. We need to unite if we want any hope of making it out alive." Danny hesitated, glancing around at his squad, then nodded slowly. "All right, we're in. But if anyone tries to double-cross us, I swear, they'll regret it." His tone was dark, warning. The squad responded with grim nods, their faces set in determination. "Let's move," Danny ordered. "Quiet and quick.
No unnecessary noise.
We don't know what's waiting for us, and I don't want to find out the hard way." As they prepared to advance, Lyra looked back at the battered landscape, feeling a strange mix of hope and dread. "I've seen enough chaos," she muttered. "But I've got a bad feeling this is just the beginning." They pressed forward, each step more cautious than the last, knowing the real fight was still ahead. The landscape around them was a twisted battleground, scarred and blackened. And yet, amid the ruins, a flicker of something else. A fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, they could turn this nightmare around. Every heartbeat echoed with the unspoken truth that survival on Xiron depended on trust, luck, and the courage to face whatever horrors lurked just beyond sight. The night wasn't over, and neither was their fight, but they refused to give up. Not yet. Not while there was still a chance to rewrite the story they'd been thrown into. The group moved cautiously through the shadowed terrain, their footsteps muffled on the cracked and blackened earth. Every rustle of debris, every distant growl, sent a shiver down their spines. The faint glow of distant fires flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced across the ruined landscape. Danny's grip tightened on his weapon, eyes scanning every corner. "We're close," he whispered, voice tense but steady. "Stay sharp. Whatever's left of the rebel command should be just ahead." Lyra, clutching her fuzzy creature tightly, shot him a skeptical look. "Are you sure? This place looks like it's been hit by a star's wrath. How do you even know we're going the right way?" Danny shot her a quick grin. "Because I've been here before, Lyra, and because my gut's telling me we're on the right track. Besides, I'd rather trust my instincts than wander in this mess." His tone was laced with a mixture of confidence and weariness, revealing just how much this mission had taken out of him. Suddenly, a low rumble vibrated through the ground beneath their feet. The squad froze, weapons raised, eyes darting around. From the shadows, a faint flickering light appeared, an outline of a makeshift camp. Relief mixed with suspicion. This could be their salvation or a trap. As they approached cautiously, voices drifted toward them. "Keep your guard up," Danny hissed. "Could be rebels, could be monsters. Either way, we don't want to be caught off guard." As they neared the camp, a rough voice called out, "Halt! Who goes there? State your business." A burly figure emerged from the shadows, gun aimed but trembling slightly. Danny stepped forward, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "We're survivors just like you. We're after the same thing, hope. We've got intel about a cache nearby, supplies, weapons. We need to work together if we're going to make it out of this alive." The man eyed them skeptically, then lowered his weapon slightly. "Name's Rax. I've seen enough death to know we need to stick together. But trust is hard to come by these days." Lyra crossed her arms, still wary. "And why should we trust you? Maybe you're just trying to cut us out." Rax's expression hardened. "Because I don't have time for games. The monsters don't care about alliances. They'll tear us apart if we don't unite. That's why I'm offering a hand, not a knife." Danny nodded slowly, weighing the words. "All right, Rax, we're in. But if anyone tries to double-cross us, I swear I'll make sure they regret it." His voice was low but unwavering, a warning wrapped in a promise. The group exchanged tense glances, then prepared to move as one unit. "Let's go," Diany ordered, voice clipped. "Quiet and quick. We don't have time to waste." The squad moved forward, every step deliberate, every breath measured. Their eyes flicked nervously toward the darkened woods and crumbling ruins around them. Lyra looked back toward the distant fires, a flicker of hope mingling with dread. "I've seen chaos before," she muttered softly, "but I've got a feeling this is only the beginning. Something even worse is waiting ahead." As they pressed on, a heavy silence settled over them, broken only by the distant echoes of howling creatures and the crackle of dying fires. They knew that what lay ahead was uncertain, dangerous, and perhaps even impossible to survive. Yet they refused to turn back. Every heartbeat was a gamble, every step a defiance of despair. The night was far from over, and their fight for survival was just beginning. But in that fragile moment, amid the ruins and shadows, hope flickered stubbornly. They clung to it, knowing that if they could reach the hidden cache, if they could rally enough strength and courage, maybe, just maybe, they could turn the tides of this nightmare on Xiron. And that was the end of the story. Comment below if you want the next chapter, and hit that like button. Please subscribe, turn on the bell, and as always, keep the last light burning.